Okie dokie, 11.3. So this is mostly about solving, but also about the relationship between solving and the picture. So let's start with number 9 because I feel like I've been doing pictures the whole entire time. So we'll come back to the solving portion. If you want to fast forward this video to the solving part, feel free to. Obviously, you don't have to watch the whole video. But determine the number of x-intercepts. I would sketch that. If you sketch this and you know that this parabola is upside down because that minus sign, and lives 24 below the y-axis, so here's negative 24, and make it face upside down, then I know that this has no x-intercepts because my u-shape, my parabola, doesn't touch that line. So if this never touches this, there are none. Now, you don't have to use the sketch. You can use the algebra, but remember what you know about x-intercepts, and I'm going to say this like a million times in all the videos. What we know about x-intercept is that the y is 0. So if I go to this equation, I know that x-intercepts have a y of 0. There is no y. You're right. So let's make it be y. And now for x-intercepts, you make the y be equal to 0. So if I replace the y with 0, I don't like the equal 0 on this side, so I'm going to make it on this side, just scratch it out. And I do some solving, and I add 24 to both sides. And then I divide both sides by negative 1, because that's what's really in front of that x squared. You get x squared equals negative 24. And then to solve this, I square root, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know what the square root of negative 24 is. That's fine, me either. But if I go to that equation, and I try to type in the square root of negative 4, Desmos and your calculator will freak out. It'll say undefined. It's going to be like, I can't do that problem, which makes a lot of sense. It can't do this problem because remember what you were asked. You were asked to find the x-intercepts. You can't square root negative numbers. And the reason it doesn't work is because you don't have this intersecting the x-axis. So the algebra fails you, and that's how the graph supports that. Like, you don't have an answer to this, which is why it doesn't show up in the picture. Personally, I think the sketching part of it is a lot easier than the equation-y part. So there we go. I would sketch it and I would use the sketch to help me answer the question. Okay, but let's do some more equation solving. So now I'm gonna just erase this so that 7 doesn't get kind of in our way. That's just the question number. All right, goal is to get x alone. So when you wanna think about what x is with, make it smaller, I can't. Okay, what's x with? It's with that 4, that teeny tiny 2, and this negative 30. So the goal is to undo everything, right? So how do we undo? We just undo the big numbers and we undo addition and subtraction first. So undo that minus 30. We undo addition with subtraction and subtraction with addition. Oops, 70 plus 30 is 100. And now again, what's x with? X is with 4 and x is with teeny tiny 2. Big numbers are big problems, so we get rid of them first. Let's tackle that. So that connection between the 4 and the x squared is multiplication, which we undo by division. And now we've got x squared equals 25. What's x with? Teeny tiny 2. We get rid of teeny tiny 2 with a square root. The square root of an x squared is an absolute value. The square root of 25 is what number times itself with 25, which we know is 5. That can't be your final answer. You can't leave me these bars and say, look, I found x. You didn't, because there's stuff around that x. So you should know that those absolute value bars are a measure of distance. Distance means you can walk to the left and you can walk to the right and you'll be okay. So if you walk to the right, you're at 5, but you can also walk left to negative 5. So there are your solutions. Don't write your answers like this. That's a point on a graph. This doesn't have anything to do with the graph. There's no graphing here. There's no y there, okay? All I'm looking for is an answer, and you've given me the answer here. Oops, don't erase that. Okay? I also see some kids writing it as x-intercepts. You're not wrong. These are x-intercepts, but I don't have the graph with me. So don't write these as ordered pairs either. I'm looking for x is an answer, and x is an answer. I'm being asked to solve for x. So there's your answer. X is 5 and x is negative 5. Not these ordered pairs, not these two things with parentheses around them, just the actual answers. All right, same exact question, but a little different. What's x with? 11. We're going to undo that 11. 24 minus 11 is 13. What's x with? A square. We undo a square with a square root. The square root of x squared is an absolute value. I have no idea what the square root of 13 is. Ta-da! The square root of 13 is the square root of 13. If it really helps you, you can put in the calculator the square root of 13 and get me a decimal. Either way is fine by me. So x is absolute value is 3.6. So I don't care if you leave it as the square root or if you leave it to me as a decimal form. Either way, remember, the bars have to drop. So you have to walk to the left and to the right. Notice I'm putting there's a plus minus in front. So you can give me a 3.6 and a negative 3.6. Okay? So it doesn't matter to me, the number, whether you write it as a decimal or you leave it with that little square root symbol over it. But I need one positive version and one negative, because remember, on a number line, you're walking this way from 0 and this way. So there's two options there. Okay, so last problem then, I think. That class started. Okay, given the following, blah, 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 there's a water balloon being thrown. Here's your equation. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to sketch it. Upside down parabola up 464. 464, upside down parabola. What was the starting height of the balloon? Here, this is where we threw it from, this way. So 464. It's obviously the back number. Okay, it's your y-intercept. So that one shouldn't be too stressful. You're just putting that back number as your starting height, which makes a lot of sense. The last question is, when will the balloon hit the ground? So if you think about this water balloon being thrown from here and being thrown this way, it's going to hit the ground here. That's the ground. Well, you know what that point is? That's the x-intercept. So all I need to do is I need to take this equation, and if it really helps you, let's make that a y in front. And every x-intercept has a y of 0, so let's put that equal to 0, which makes sense because 0 is the ground. So if I really wanted to solve this, I could just take the equation of the water balloon and make it be equal to the ground. That's what equals 0 means. It literally means find the ground. That's the ground. Okay? So then I'm just going to solve it. So I subtract 464 from both sides. Get rid of that negative 16 by dividing it. No, I don't know what that is off the top of my head. 464 divided by 16, negative and negative. It's going to give me the same number, but just to prove it to you, 29. So t squared equals 29. What's t with? A square. How do we undo a square? A square root, absolute value of t. Now here it said approximate to 1 decimal place, so I have no idea what the square root of 29 is, but Desmos does, or your calculator does. So that's 5.38, so I'm just going to round to 5.4. And to drop the bars, I need one positive answer and one negative answer. But the negative answer doesn't make sense here because we're talking about how long did it take to hit the ground. So 5.4 seconds, not negative 5.4 seconds. Remember, theory versus reality. In theory, this has 2 x-intercepts, which is what we're finding. But in reality, this is backwards in time. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever. -1, -2, that doesn't make any sense. So theory versus reality, I don't actually need both of these answers, even though in theory they're both right. The only answer I need is the real one that's practical, the positive one. Okay? So, short story for when does the ball hit the ground? Make your equation equal to 0 and solve. What's the height of the water balloon? Whatever your y-intercept number is. How do you do these x-intercept problems? Sketch it and look at the picture. How do we do these problems? Solve for x. Undo addition and subtraction always first, then worry about the number in front if there is one, and then undo squares by square roots with the absolute value. And then when you drop these bars, remember to consider the positive version and the negative, whether it's a decimal version or a whole number version, and that's pretty much it. So hopefully that's enough to make you feel better for the test tomorrow. If not, send me an email or find some more cool videos that aren't made by me. Okay, bye.